Hi. Good morning and welcome to Interstellar Observatory number 7, where we discuss our world and beyond. Come along with us this session in our fourth celestial probe from Mars.
Fourth celestial probe. Mars, the red planet's daily news. A star catalogue published by Ptolemy in 140 CE, whose geocentric view of the universe listed 48 constellations, was unchallenged until Copernicus. De revolutionibus orbium coelestium was Nicolaus Copernicus' published theory in 1543 CE of how the Earth travels around the Sun, which opposed Ptolemy's model of the universe in rotation around the Earth. Until 1610 CE, heliocentrism wasn't as prominent of a way to think without Galileo Galilei's findings, which confirmed Copernicus' position. In Sidereus Nuncius Galilei records his observations from a telescope built by him. Seeing the red planet wouldn't be necessary through Galilei's telescope nor any other, as amongst the brightest stars Mars is vivid in night skies from deep in the heart of Texas and other states throughout the United States. Identified perhaps foremost, since ancient times when hunter-gatherers gazed up at the stars in repose after long days' hunts, noticing bodies' gradual movement, Mars stood out compared to others. Villagers, noblemen, monks, and priests beginning to chart the stars would culminate in Ptolemy's model. One of 7 somatophylakes of Alexander the Great, who after his death in 323 BC, Ptolemy became the satrap of Egypt with the partitioning of Babylon. Alexander had a massive empire but wished to be buried in the Temple of Zeus Ammon in Libya other than in Macedonia, where successor of his kingdom wished. As Alexander's body was on its way from Syria to Macedonia, Ptolemy captured it and brought it back Memphis in Egypt. Mars, the fourth body from our sun, was as Memphis is synonymous to astronomy, so to Alexander personified in the god of war, where there was a temple to Ares and several temples dedicated to Mars in Greece and Rome, respectively.
The last of the 4 consecutive terrestrial planets in our solar system from the Sun is Mars, where further from Earth than Venus in distance, it is closer in the likelihood for celestial travel. This is the second smallest planet in the solar system, though the distance from the Earth varies. The closest we come closest to Mars is 33.9 million miles, with the average at about 140 million miles. This satellite of the Sun has 2 irregularly shaped moons orbiting it, Phobos on its inner orbit and the smaller Deimos orbiting beyond the first. Primarily of carbon dioxide, Mars' atmosphere is rather thin, but with molecular nitrogen and argon there are traces of carbon, carbon monoxide, hydrogen, and yes, even water. It is nicknamed the Red Planet because the iron, 3, oxide on its surface gives it its classic rustic red look. The temperature ranges from a negative 166 degrees to positive 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The northern and southern hemispheres define its Martian dichotomy, where the flatter and lower surface in the north differs greatly from the southern terrain. Mars is a very active planet, with the landscape constantly overrun by sweeping dust devils and with its surface plagued with Mars quakes. There are also many volcanoes like the Shield Olympus Mons. The lowest canyon is Valles Marineris, and at its highest are its polar ice caps, which make Mars unique and to us Earthlings so inviting. Sure, it is nice to compare things with others, but apples and oranges can't be. In like fashion, neither may planets with life be compared to those without in such fashion, but whether Mars has had or even still has life is yet to be determined. With 2023 being an off year, Mars won't be visible again until mid-January of 2024, where in the bottom right 9th sector of view looking up Mars may be seen. Well, sure, assuming up is north and there's clear or at least slightly partly cloudy skies.
Personified in Roman mythology as the god of war and courage, Mars coincides with Ares in Greek. If we hadn't researched the Great Pyramids of Egypt and recognized them astronomically and astrologically, it may be better to follow that prerequisite first. As a son of Zeus and Hera, Ares is in Greek mythology one of the 12 Olympians who resided on Mount Olympus. Though the objective of war is peace, there is a savage side where courage in battle can switch to brutality if not checked with compassion, which is why other Olympians were ambivalent towards Ares, or in our case Mars. Who has ever heard of a unanimous decision for war? Probably died in battle, but war is as necessary as nourishment, because men are not vegetables, and seeing what is desired of this world's struggle or necessity is our only for sure constant, so war is inevitable as no two think alike always. Bound to live and bound to die, peace comes with complacency, but man is insatiable, where without Mars, we would long for him and cause war if whether ordered to do so or not.
Temples have been erected to Ares and the latter Roman deity Mars in Greece and Rome respectively. The Temple of Ares is in Athens in the northern part of the ancient Agora. Described by Pausanias, the Temple of Ares was somewhat similar to Athena's temple and dates back to the 5th century BC. A similar Doric preteral temple dedicated to Ares is also similar to the Temple of Hephaestus, which is still mostly intact today. In Clivo and Via Appia, Rome, a temple was erected on the western side dedicated to Mars. Built in the 4th century BC, it is the oldest dedicated to Mars there. The remains of a temple to Mars were erected in Courseulles by Côtes d'Armor in France. This Roman temple was of Gaulish tradition and built in the middle of the 1st century of the Christian era. At Campus Martius in Rome, a temple to Mars was built in the 2nd century BC. The Temple of Mars altar is another dedicated to him and erected at the center of the Forum of Augustus in ancient Rome. In peripteral style in the front and sides, but on the back, it's lined with 8 Corinthian columns. It was dedicated in 2 BC to Augustus with his acceptance of Pater Patri, father of the country, and of Mars.
Our fourth celestial body from the Sun is personified in the god of war, to which temples erected were dedicated to Ares and Mars. Not only is Mars a terrestrial planet, its temperature, atmosphere, and the fact that its polar ice caps were once water means there may have been or still is there somewhere life. Personified in the Roman god of war, Mars compares to the Greek Ares. Many temples were erected in his honor.
That's all the information we have for you this time on Mars. Next session we explore the Sun's largest satellite, Jupiter. See you then and thank you for your time and consideration.